The biggest change we have in the new EU directive is the removal of Part B services and the introduction of social and other services, which is a strange grouping, it has to be said, because it's not quite social and health the way we expected it to be. It seems to lean heavily towards things like personnel services, and at the same time we have strange things in there such as tyre remoulding and blacksmith services, so slightly confusing concoction of things that they've come up with to decipher as services to the person. But the removal of Part B services is going to mean a lot of change for a lot of public bodies, because they're going to have to take all the services that were previously hidden and be fully transparent in terms of how they advertise them. We've got two new procedures being brought into play. One is an amalgam of the negotiated procedure with competitive dialogue called competitive procedure with negotiation. The key thing involved in that is that authorities using it, if they wish, will be able to invite suppliers in to have dialogue once they've received the tenders, and through successive stages will be able to reduce the number of bidders and then have revised bids submitted. They're also introducing a new one called Innovation Partnership, and in terms of Innovation Partnership, the interesting thing with that is it has to be for products, services or works which do not exist in any form within the current marketplace, so really something that's going to drive innovation within the market. In terms of the current procedures, the open procedure is seeing a reduction in the timescales. It's dropping from 52 days down to 35 days, and if an authority has run a prior information notice, they'll be able to cut that down to 15 days, which is quite scary for suppliers. The restricted procedure will be 30 days for pre-qualification instead of 37, and the tender timescale 30 days instead of the current 40. However, again, if a prior information notice has been run, we're looking at that dropping as low as 10 days. Again, something that's quite scary in terms of suppliers. One of the other interesting things in the new directive is the introduction of a number of articles around probity. For example, the European Union has introduced an article on conflict of interest dealing specifically with issues within contracting authorities. However, they've also introduced an article specifically dealing with the issue that if a contractor has too much influence on the tender process, then it may be necessary for authorities to remove that contractor. If that is the situation, then they will have to be automatically removed from the tender process. It's going to be interesting to see how that's actually adopted in terms of the UK regulations. The big issue this new directive raises is the need for authorities to consider contract management. One of the key things that the new directive speaks about is the idea of looking at life cycle cost, and to do proper life cycle cost analysis in contracts, you do have to manage contracts. It is very, very important that organisations understand what the cost implications within contracts are, whether that be installation cost, maintenance cost, management cost, disposal cost. It makes no difference. It is critical that organisations take consideration of contract management to ensure that contract performance is properly costed. The biggest issue with this new directive is that both buyer and supplier are going to have to understand the major changes which are being brought in. The current directive that we use had 72 articles, the new one has 96 articles, approximately a third larger than the previous one. There's a lot more need in terms of probity, there's a lot more need in terms of transparency, equal opportunity, non-discrimination in relation to what's done. There's going to be a lot of change in the marketplace based on the removal of Part B services. We've got the introduction of this social and other services process. Suppliers are going to have to be able to evidence a lot more what they claim. It's not going to be as acceptable just to have tick box answers. So everybody's going to have to work at this considerably to make sure that they understand how to move forward once this is turned into regulation.